Well, hello, we're doing Deuteronomy, we're in chapter 25, and I think we'll try and get all of it done in a one night. It's another of these various laws, bits and bats here and there. But anyway, let's read it, as usual, from the NIV. So, starting at verse 1 of chapter 25. When people have a dispute, they're to take it to court, and judges will decide the case, acquitting the innocent, condemning the guilty. If the guilty person deserves to be beaten, the judge shall make them lie down, have them flogged in his presence, with the number of lashes the crime deserves. But the judge must not impose more than 40 lashes. If the guilty party is flogged more than that, your fellow Israelite will be degraded in your eyes. Do not muzzle an ox while it is treading out the grain. If the brothers are living together and one of them dies without a son, his widow must not marry outside the family. Her husband's brother shall take her and marry her and fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to her. The first son she bears shall carry on the name of the dead brother, so that his name will not be blotted out from Israel. However, if a man does not want to marry his brother's wife, she shall go to the elders at the town gate and say, "My husband's brother refuses to carry on his brother's name in Israel. He will not fulfill the duty of a brother-in-law to me." Then the elders of the town shall summon him and talk to him. If he persists in saying, "I do not want to marry her," his brother's widow shall go up to him in the presence of the elders, take off one of his sandals, spit in his face, and say, "This is what is done to the man who will not build up his brother's family line. That man's line shall be known in Israel as the family of the unsandaled." If two men are fighting, and the wife of one of them comes to rescue her husband from his assailant, and she reaches out and seizes him by his private parts, you shall cut off her hand. Show her no pity. Do not have differing weights in your bag, one heavy, one light. Do not have two differing measures in your house, one large, one small. You must have accurate and honest weights and measures, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God has given you. For the Lord your God detests anyone who does these things, anyone who deals dishonestly. Remember the Amalekites. Remember what the Amalekites did to you along the way when you came out of Egypt, when you were weary and worn out. They met you on your journey and attacked all who were lagging behind. They had no fear of God. And the Lord your God gives you rest from all your enemies around you in the land he has given to you to possess as an inheritance. You shall blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. So we have, a collection of rules, laws, and some of them we can immediately agree with, appreciate them, the goodness of them. Other bits we're not so sure. So let's have a look. And the first three verses highlight the very point. Judges shall decide a case and acquit the innocent, condemn the guilty. And we can, I guess we can all agree with that. And it would be good if our courts always did that. In general they do, but obviously various cases arise where it seems that they don't. But anyway, we then get the bit which we might react against, about the case where the man deserves 40, is given up to 40 lashes. And it's limited at 40. And we think one lash would be fairly barbaric. So, well, first of all, but notice one or two things. It is at the end, so that your fellow Israelite will, the aim is that fellow Israelite is not degraded in the eyes of his fellow Israelites. And so nowadays, we react against corporal punishment. But let me just give you a thought. The principle here is, right, the man is punished, and then that's the end of the matter. And he can get on with the rest of his life, hopefully without committing any more crimes. If he creates more crimes, there will be more punishment. but hopefully without committing any more crimes. In our system, people, well, either various things which can be done at schools, or for adults that people are put into prison and so on. Our non-corporal punishments can often be less effective in deterring people from committing crimes, but also worse for the person who's been found guilty in the long run. Nobody wants to be hit 40 lashes, obviously. But if something's done and then that's it and it's over and done with, get on with your life, that might be a better principle. That's just something to think about. That the immediate reaction, corporal punishment is wrong. Obviously it can be abused, and people who argue against it, particularly in schools, tales of sadistic teachers and so on. Notice that the law here is given so that sadistic punishment does not occur. Do not muzzle an ox while it is treading out the grain. Now, Paul quoted this in 1 Timothy 5:18, and is drawn from the principle that the ox deserves to be fed if he's doing work. Just a brief interruption from a phone call there. Anyway, so this verse, the animal deserves its food. And Paul, in 1 Timothy 5:18, uses the same principle to humans. And preaches people working for the church that they deserve to be paid properly. Then we have another bit which we've seems totally alien to us. Again, this is a bit about the widow whose husband dies and then supposedly having to marry her husband's brother. Now, I think it was the Pharisees, or it might have been the teachers of the law, tried to trap Jesus. I said, what happens if there's this woman who has goes about 7 husbands or 6 husbands and gets to the 7th? And Jesus then obviously replies to them, look, things are going to be different in heaven. It's not going to be marriage like there is now. But anyway, if we come back to this, what sort of verses 5 to 10 highlight is a different view of marriage than we commonly have. There are 2 things, or 2 key things which go into marriage. One is the romantic side, the romantic attraction, and the other is the practicalities. Now, in our society, we tend to focus purely on the romantic side as being the basis for marriage. In Old Testament times, and not just in those times, there's a much more practical approach to it, to marriage. You needed to, and particularly in those days, women did need to be married to be looked after properly. And then there is a bit, one part of the emphasis here is that the name of the husband who died should be carried on. Should not die then, but should be carried on through a child that the widow has. So there's just 2 different approaches to marriage. Then we got the delightful bit in 11 to 12. Basically, if 2 men are having a fight and the wife of one of them grabs the balls of the other, it's not allowed, he gets a hand chopped off. Does seem a rather severe punishment. And not a great deal to say about this. No one's based a theology on these 2 verses to the best of my knowledge. So let's just move on. 13 to 16, much more straightforward, and the point that's, I think there's a number of proverbs going along the same lines, is business dealing must be carried out honestly. And that the Lord hates people who carry out business dishonestly. So if you're in business, on any kind of similar transactions that we might get involved in, do things honestly. Otherwise you're going to be in trouble. And finally, the Amalekites were in trouble. Now this is when Israel came out of Egypt. It's the battle where Joshua was fighting and a couple of guys held up Moses' hands. When they held his hands up, the battle went well. When the hands drooped, then it didn't go so well. And here, God has said, go and destroy them. I'm just, well, that's not good. Well, God said it, so it must have been good, so it must be good. It is judgment upon the Amalekites. And well, two key points. One, Israel was not doing this for their own benefit. They were to do it on God's behalf for his judgment upon the Amalekites. And the second point is, we should treat Israel well. Many nations do not treat Israel well. Now that doesn't mean that everything Israel does is perfect, because they're not. It's a very atheistic society. They need to repent and turn to Jesus if they want lasting peace. But nations, including ours, if we treat Israel badly, we are asking for trouble. And obviously there are many nations which do treat Israel badly, some of them very badly. They are asking for trouble. They need to repent. And on that note, we'll finish there. I've gone rather a long time for this, but anyway, it's got the chapter done.